It's AJ Kerrigan, it's Tom Ross. It's round number 3 here from New Jersey. They'll be given the green light, and they'll be underway here. Tom, number 10 on our season 4 leaderboard, as he is trying to solidify a spot in the Players' Championship. There's no guarantee.
No.
And he does qualify, even though he's had a very good season. A slow start to the year, but he's really picked it up here in season 4.
He has. And actually, right now, if we were to stop it right now, he would not be in the Players' Championship.
Yep.
We're looking at 8 total slots. We only have one person in the top 9 who's already qualified. That's Kevin Jones.
Yep.
So you got to be in 9th place or better currently.
Here's the hand here for the boss. You got Inkmoth Nexus, Gataxian Probe, a Daze, a Become Immense, and a Brainstorm. Kerrigan going to write down the information thanks to his Gataxian Probe. Going to fall down to 18.
This is a pretty fast kill here from Tom, but not that much disruption. Just a Daze for Kerrigan to play through.
Yep. AJ will draw a card. See Rite of Flame over there. Lion's Eye Diamond, Chrome Mox, and Underground Sea.
Tom's hand, as currently situated, is probably looking at a turn 4 kill. Could be 3 if his cantrips yield the right stuff.
Another Daze, a pretty interesting draw here from Tom. You have to imagine AJ will play around the first. Unclear if he'll try to play around the second.
And even if Tom doesn't have a second island in play, Tom can, for example, cantrip this turn, play the land, and be able to alternate cast a Daze and hard cast a Daze off of the Nexus and the Noble Hierarch.
Yep. The boss is going to start off with a Gataxian Probe. Get an idea of exactly what AJ is working with. You see a beautiful Altered Ponder. Let's make it 2 of those, along with a Brainstorm, a Rite of Flame, 2 Lion's Eye Diamonds, and an Infernal Tutor.
What's bad news here for Kerrigan is the best way to play around Daze with Storm is just make your land drops. Now Ross has the information that Kerrigan does not have another land in hand. Ross might get very aggressive fighting over the Ponder and Brainstorm in hand, trying to shut Kerrigan out of his land drops.
I thought there might be a Chrome Mox in AJ's hand. Does not appear to be the case, though he does play 3 copies of Chrome Mox in his deck. Some players with Storm choose to play Chrome Mox, some do not.
Yeah.
Tom going to go with a Brainstorm. 3 cards coming, 2 will be going back. Verdant Catacombs, Inkmoth Nexus among the cards drawn here for the boss. Also looks like an Invigorate in there as well, so we could be in turn 3 kill territory.
Yes, and I think what Ross would like to do here is, make sure that his graveyard is large enough where next turn he can activate the Nexus, Invigorate, and Become Immense for lethal. So the question is, can he get the requisite cards in the graveyard?
There's Inkmoth Nexus, pass the turn back. A Brainstorm here from Kerrigan on the end step. What's interesting to me is, are you supposed to Daze this?
I don't mind fighting over the cantrips here. The problem is that Ross needs to keep all of his mana in play. So if he ends up fighting over everything, it's possible he's short on mana next turn to be able to do what he wants to do. But I do like hard casting the Daze.
I do like hard casting Daze there.
I think with Kerrigan not having lands, you want to fight over the cantrips, especially when you're setting up a kill for next turn.
Oh, Chrome Mox was the draw here for AJ.
And I believe that if Kerrigan does anything that allows Ross to cast the Daze, Ross can replay the land, activate the Nexus, Invigorate, and have enough cards in the graveyard to become immense as well.
And I also think there's a copy of Gataxian Probe floating around in Tom's hand as well, which is another card towards the graveyard.
Right, so he should have this set up, and it's just an issue of can he survive this turn.
Here's Chrome Mox. Kerrigan treading carefully. Of course, when you do play against someone who just cast a Brainstorm, even though Kerrigan did cast Gataxian Probe in the first turn of the game, you're not entirely sure what he's working with.
And I think this Chrome Mox may give Kerrigan enough to brute force his way past this Daze. Because remember, he's got a bunch of Lion's Eye Diamonds plus the Infernal Tutor in hand.
Mm-hmm. There's a second Lion's Eye Diamond. This is an Infernal Tutor. This on the stack. Interesting. Well, it doesn't look like Tom's going to... So this is interesting, because it doesn't look like Tom's going to Daze now.
There's not a whole lot to be gained by dazing.
Yeah. The one thing that he can do is he would add to the storm count, which is not good. So maybe he was supposed to Daze this Chrome Mox. If he Dazes the Chrome Mox, AJ can't do all of this.
Right.
And this is what actually makes it difficult to play against Storm, because sometimes you're not sure what you're supposed to Daze. Now, Tom is looking at this Daze in his hand. There's 6 mana floating, so if AJ's plan is to cast Ad Nauseam, he can pay the 1 from the Daze and still cast Ad Nauseam.
So he hasn't played a land this turn.
Very true.
He'll have no mana floating. I'm not a big fan of Chrome Mox in the deck in general, but something it does let you do, it makes your Ad Nauseam's a lot more reliable. You can go off from a much lower base because you have more stuff that can kickstart mana and allow you to cast all of your rituals. It's a poor card to have in your opening hand, though it does lead to some pretty explosive kills sometimes. But what it does do is allow you to ad nauseam from a low base, like where Kerrigan's at right now, where he's going to ad nauseam with no land drop made, but probably no mana floating. That's often a tough spot to go off from, but with Chromoxes in the deck, you're much more likely to be able to find mana, kickstart the rituals and cantrips that you find, and be able to kill in one turn.
Now, if you're Tom here, I think you probably have to daze. It sucks that you're adding to the storm count, but I think you might be forced to because you just don't want him to have any mana floating.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to give him the opportunity to just work his way in a Dark Ritual.
Right. It's possible this creates a choke point if Kerrigan, for example, can't find black mana off of all of his draws. Even if he finds rituals, he may not be able to get anything started. It's unlikely, but it seems more likely than the 1 point of the storm count being consequential.
He's down to 11 now. Let's make it 10 from Brainstorm. 8 from Infernal Tutor. 7 from Ponder. 6 from a Ponder. 5 from a Gataxian Probe. 3 from a Burning Wish. Might be time to stop.
Well, if there's a Tendrils or Past in Flames in his list, it's risky to keep going. I don't know if he's doing everything through Burning Wish in the list. He has a main deck empty.
Yep. It does not appear a main deck Tendrils here this weekend. Does not appear to have a main deck Past in Flames either. But one thing you can note here, a lot of what he has found, not a ton of extra mana, but he's going to keep it.
Well, I think that he's got a land drop that he can make plus a Lotus Petal. That allows him to cast the Dark Rituals plus Burning Wish.
Sure.
That probably gets him to where he needs to go.
He does have some redraws here in Brainstorms. He also has a probe that he can cast. But he did stop there.
And you can see this is a spot where Chromoxes would have been huge hits.
Yep.
They would have been a really big deal if he could have found them.
Petal 1, Petal 2, Storm Count's going up. Storm Count's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, I think he's got enough to get it done because I believe he found 2 copies of Dark Ritual, and he's got the Lotus Petals to provide red for Burning Wish.
Well, there's 1 Dark Ritual.
So that gets him to 5, 6, 7 from the Petals. Burning Wish is 2, and Tendrils is 4.
Yep, that should get him home.
He should get this.
He'll use one of these Lotus Petals to cast Burning Wish. To the sideboard, AJ Kerrigan's going to go. You can see the mana floating here, the spell count, all that good stuff. Many drills appear to be on the way to finish the boss off. And AJ Kerrigan's going to win game number 1 here over Tom Ross. Storm up a game here over Infect. One thing to keep in mind, that's turn 2 kill, where Ross was going to kill on turn 3. And had Ross used that daze appropriately. Now, it is a mistake, but it's a hard mistake to see.
Well, Ross was working with the information.
Yep.
He saw the hand via Gataxian Probe. He knew that Chromox was the draw there. And I think if he goes back and looks at the information that he had in hand, he would feel like he should have dazed that Chromox.
That's why you see a bit of an eye flare there. And now Tom trying to figure out how he wants the sideboard here for the matchup. So we'll take a look at the sideboards here for both players. We're going to start off with the boss. He's got 3 Leyline of Sanctities, a Wasteland, a Fairy Macabre, a Surgical Extraction, 2 Rest in Peace, a Caracas, 2 Swords of Plowshares, 2 Crows and Grips, a Nature's Claim, and a Force Will. Different sideboard here for Tom this weekend.
I like bringing in the additional copy of Force of Will for sure. I think Leyline of Sanctity is a fine card to bring in here. Kerrigan's probably got discard spells, and the Tendrils kills get shut off there as well. So I think that card's very likely to come in. And I think you could also bring in the copy of Wasteland, too. Kerrigan's on a lot of non-basic lands, and if Ross on the play is able to tag a land, that can set Kerrigan back quite a bit.
3 Xantid Swarm, 3 Abrupt Decay, a Bayou to help cast those green cards, a Chain of Vapor, a Void Snare, a Massacre, a Dark Petition, a Telemann Performance, a Tendrils, a Past in Flames, and an Empty the Warrens here for the Burning Wish Storm player.
I would bring in the 3 copies of Xantid Swarm for sure, as Ross's interaction is likely just to be counterspell, so Xantid Swarm's excellent there. Abrupt Decays do slow down Ross, but they're a little incongruous with the plan. It's not like Kerrigan would be bringing them in to tag some card like either Sworn Canonist or Thalia that's very hard to play through. He would just be using it as a removal spell. So I think it's less likely to come in, but the Xantid Swarms I think are a lock to be sideboarded in.
Now, one thing I kind of want to note here from the sideboards, as these players do sideboard and shuffle up, you see a Fairy Macabre here for Tom, along with the Surgical Extraction. And then on AJ's side, he's got a Telemann Performance. I think people, given Jarvis Yu's win, and we've seen Lance have some success in the Open Series as well, paying a lot of more respect to Lance as a deck.
And Telemann Performance is a card that's, it's not just going to be good against lands. There's probably other decks you're going to run to over the course of the tournament that are without creatures. So it's a fine use of 1 sideboard slot, but it's got to be a response to lands among other decks.
Well, as these players who shuffle up here for game number 2, Tom Ross will be on the play. We'll very quickly talk about the Star City Games YouTube page where you can find the replays of this tournament and a whole bunch more.
Yeah, a lot of archives there. The Versus Series, premium articles, open series, and there's content that's exclusive to the YouTube page, like unboxings. Head over to youtube.com/Star City Games. Subscribe today and get notified when new content gets uploaded to the site.
You'll be able to watch what I feel are going to be a lot of good replays from this tournament, given the players that are attendance among the 500. One of them is the boss. That's Tom Ross. Currently down a game, but as you see, for the 32-year-old who currently resides in Roanoke, Virginia, a lot of accomplishments on his resume. 3 invitational top 8s with 2 wins. We all remember him going back-to-back last year, once in this building. That was one of the wins, as he beat Reed Duke in the finals last year in New Jersey. 7 Open Series top 8s with 2 wins, one of them coming very recently at our Open Series in St. Louis, where he did defeat Eric Hawkins in the finals. A Pro Tour top 8 to his name at Pro Tour Honolulu, and 4 Grand Prix top 8s. Used to parkour, can still do some backflips, Mortal Kombat 10 enthusiast, and a 5-time Louisiana State champion. A very skilled Magic player is the boss. However, as we have seen with our road to the Star City Games Players Championship, he's by no means a lock, even though he did win an Open here in Season 4.
I mean, he's outside looking in right now. He's going to be going to Denver. He's going to be here, obviously, and he's going to be in Las Vegas for the Invitational. There's a lot of opportunities to pick up points, but again, by no means certain that he's in the Players Championship in a couple weeks.
It's interesting, right? Where you see him win an Open. We saw his dominance last year, slow start this year. It's starting to pick it up a little bit, but, you know, you can't say it wasn't for lack of trying. Maybe you know, it was a little late to get started, one could argue. But, you know, even we saw him go to Kansas City last week, and he hasn't missed an Open this season. He's gone to everything. We're going to see him in Denver, as you mentioned, Las Vegas, all that good stuff. And we can't forget as well that, you know, the leaderboard that we do have does currently not include that IQ from the only game in town last weekend, yesterday.
Tom was a finalist.
Which is big for him. But as you mentioned, currently on the outside looking in, which is unfamiliar territory for the boss here on the Open Series. Looks like Kerrigan going to take a mulligan. Ross will take a look at his opening hand. You take a look at the leaderboard right now as AJ is going to take a mulligan. As you mentioned, Tom would be on the outside looking in right now. So Morawski, we ended things right now, Season 4 points champion. Lock it in. 7 players would qualify. Those who have 7 at large bids. That's Nance, that's Fabiano, that's Lisette, that's Anderson, that's Briska, that's Merriam, and then, let's take a page number 2, that's Hawkins.
But just a point outside.
Yeah.
And remember that Ross was a finalist in the IQ yesterday. Hawkins was also there. I do not believe he top 8, though I'm not certain. So Ross should be ahead of him right now in the standings, but the margin is razor thin right now.
You see Mize and Anderson there as well, looking to catch back up. Is Tom Ross going to keep his opening hand? He's got a ley line of sanctity to put in before the game even begins, along with the verdant catacombs and pass the turn back. Now you do wonder, how strong is Ross's hand? Did he keep the hand based off of ley line? We're going to find out. A Badlands is where AJ Kerrigan's going to start things. Ross will sacrifice. Go get himself the Dryad Arbor. Perhaps it's time for regular beatdowns. We've seen Tom do it before.
If your opponent's going to kill with ad nauseum, the points do matter.
Yeah.
Kerrigan did not have a lot of margin for error by the end of the first game after he had gone off, so it's not the way you prefer to do it, but as you mentioned, we've seen Ross go down this road several times.
There's Noble Hire, a couple copies of Invigorate in Tom's hand right now as well. We can't forget about the combination with Invigorate, bunch of pump spells, Exalted, and Berserk. We've seen him do some pretty crazy things with this deck. Ah, yes, regular damage is beautiful. Dryad Arbor +1 thanks to the Noble Hierarch.
Some Invigorates in hand. I mean, you know, start getting in them a little bit.
Yeah.
Start going beat downs.
Tom's hand not great right now. You mentioned a couple copies of Invigorate. There's a Force Will, looks like a Spell Pierce, and just another land. Tom's just going to pass the turn back. No interest in playing that other land in case he does draw a Brainstorm. It does make you wonder how soft is Kerrigan's deck to a card like Leyline of Sanctity. We took a look at his sideboard. He does have things like Chain of Vapor to bring in, Void Snare to Burning Wish for.
But if you're familiar with Ross, he's never had Leyline, to my knowledge, in the sideboard.
Yep.
I would not anticipate this card being available. Kerrigan's looking through his sideboard right now, trying to see if he has anything in the main deck to get out of this Leyline or if he has to Burning Wish for something.
The other question, too, as Ross is running another copy of Leyline, is can Kerrigan beat 2?
I think getting 2 off the table becomes very challenging.
That seems very difficult, especially when you have Counterspell backup as well with Force of Will and Spell Pierce.
And Ross does have a Savannah in the deck.
Yep.
He can hardcast with the Noble Hierarch plus the Savannah.
There is the Savannah. And you mentioned it, and this is actually pretty big stuff here. Typically, we never see Tom play Leyline Sanctity. Again, I'm trying to think of the many different variations that he's had. In fact, sometimes he splashes white, sometimes he doesn't for swords and Rest in Peace and stuff like that, but we've never seen Leyline.
And Leyline paired with Force of Will is really tough on AJ.
Yeah.
That's a tough combination of cards to get out from. The way for Kerrigan to beat this setup is empty the Warrens. I don't know if he has it in his deck, but that's a way for him to ignore Leyline.
He's got one in his main, or at least on his deck list he does. Now, we don't know if he sideboarded it out. It might be a little too slow in this matchup, as the boss is going to keep coming across here for 2 points of damage.
Because of Nexus and Blighted Agent, it's not like you can empty for 12, pass the turn, and win the game. It's usually for matchups where you can do something like that. I don't think that's going on here, so I would be surprised if Empty the Warrens was something he still had in his deck.
This is just some pretty normalized beatdowns here from Tom Ross. Stride Arbor in combination with Noble Hierarch is going to bring Kerrigan down to 12, though Kerrigan has just been playing lands. He did slide those lands back. He's just going to discard a Cabal Therapy. He can't target Tom with that after all. Another Leyline to draw here for Tom.
I don't know if the third one's doing anything the second one isn't. I think at this point, Tom may want to start trying to cast some of these Invigorates and shorten the clock a little bit.
He can get it done in 2 turns. 2 attacks for 6.
Yeah.
Looks like he's just going to deal 2 here. Pass the turn back over to Kerrigan. Lion's Eye Diamond the draw here for AJ. Don't know if that's helpful or not. He'll just discard Cabal Therapy, pass the turn back over to Ross. Ross will draw. Didn't get a great look at the draw step, but he is already kind of reaching for mana here. Green Sun Zenith. That'll get you another Noble Hierarch. Could also get Tom and Glistener Elf. Depends on which route he wants to go.
I think he's on natural damage at this point.
I'm with you. In for 3 Exalted, put Kerrigan down to 7. Keep in mind, Ross has 2 Force Wills, 2 blue cards, and Kerrigan, typically how Storm decks carve a path through this as they cast a discard spell, he can't do that.
Yeah, this is not quite a lock, because again, Empty the Warrens can get him out of this spot, but based on the way I assume Kerrigan's deck is set up, I don't think he can get out from under this.
Ponder will allow AJ to take a look at the top 3 cards. We'll see if he wants to keep them or shuffle it away. You know, when you come to a meta tournament, of course, you're trying to predict the metagame and what you think the players are going to play, but also with that IQ yesterday at the only game in town where a lot of the big name players were there, and you take a look at our players to watch leaderboard and some of the players that are on it or off of it that you know are going to be in attendance, this is a pretty storm-heavy metagame this weekend.
Yes. And I mean, Ross making a deviation this big, having 3 copies of Leyline Sanctity, playing a Savannah in his main deck.
I mean, we've got Caleb Scherer here, Eric Hawkins. Those are 2 Storm players. AJ Kerrigan, a Storm player. Bryant Cook, a Storm player. And given where we are in the country, you know that, okay, at least 4 of the players that are going to be here are going to play Storm, and all 4 of them are very good.
Yes.
Here's a Rite of Flame. Now, it's always dangerous when you're playing a Storm. When they start casting rituals, you're always asking yourself, which one am I supposed to counter? Is it this one? Do I wait for the Ad Nauseam? Do I wait for something bigger? It looks like Tom's going to go with a Spell Pierce here.
Well, Tom's got to figure out what's the route here for Kerrigan to get out from under this. My opinion has to be Empty the Warrens, and so I don't mind cutting off any ritual. Maybe he's got it in his hand. Maybe he needs to Burning Wish and go get it, but I would be looking to choke off mana at this point.
Kerrigan looks like he's going to sacrifice this Lotus Petal, and he will. This will allow him to cast another Rite of Flame. This one bigger than the last, given the Rite of Flame in the graveyard. Tom wants to make sure he knows exactly how much mana that's going to add. He's going to sacrifice this Verdant Catacombs. I think a Tropical Island will be on the way, perhaps another Spell Pierce on the way. And that's what it'll be. And the other 2 blue cards are 2 copies of Force Will.
And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Kerrigan paid for this Spell Pierce if Tom then went and Force of Willed.
Sure.
And just cut mana off as much as possible.
Because he's got the win next turn.
Yeah.
Just want to choke him as much as he can.
And Tom right now can't really beat Empty the Warrens.
Yep. Kerrigan going to sacrifice Polluted Delta. Going to search up a land here. He'll go with Volcanic Island. And he's going to pay for the Spell Pierce. And now this will be interesting to see if Tom does Force of Will here or not. He says, all right, you can have it. So that's 3 red in the pool. Now Kerrigan going to go to the sideboard. See what's hiding in there. Get a good look at what's going on here in A.J. Kerrigan's graveyard. Card like Past in Flames could work its way into the equation, but again, Tom does have Force of Will with another Force of Will to remove to be able to cast it for free. I'm not sure where Kerrigan's hand does lead to. There is a Lion's Eye Diamond over there, and I believe an Infernal Tutor as well.
I just don't know if he's got enough mana to get anything substantial started.
Yep.
Because Ad Nauseam's probably off the table for him with his life total at 6.
Here's Burning Wish. With only 1 red floating. Now this is interesting. It's this fun little game that Storm plays against the opponent where you're just unsure when you have counter magic in your hand what you're supposed to counter. Tom's going to counter it though. He says I'll Force a Will.
Kerrigan's put 2 mana into this and probably needs a Burning Wish for something to get out from under this. I'm fine using the counter spell here. You're never certain, but
here's Lion's Eye Diamond. There's Lion's Eye Diamond. Sacrifice. This isn't over. If he still has empty in this deck, this is very much a game.
yes. Well, he still can't get an Infernal Tutor. Oh, no, he still has a red
Yeah, he has a
floating.
red floating.
He has a red floating.
And the spell count, the spell count's at 10. I mean, he can't tendrils him. Yep, there's Infernal Tutor. Whole priority, break both LEDs. The big question here is, does he have empty still in his deck?
Well, at this point, if he has Past in Flames, he's got some rituals in the graveyard. I don't know if he's got enough to get everything going here. He requires so much mana at this point.
Yep.
That I'm not sure. I'm still not sure there's a path. He may have to Ad Nauseam into perfects. He may not be able to go and get Past in Flames. If he has the empty in the deck, things are pretty good.
Yeah, because this is an empty for so much.
Yeah, it's an empty for the storm count's 11 right now.
To be 12, that's 24 goblins. Oh,
Wow.
my.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, then. 24 goblins on the way here for A.J. Kerrigan. I don't know if we're going to need all 20. I don't know if we have 24 of these. Okay, that'll work. That'll work. That'll work.
Wow. This is some very skilled play here from Kerrigan.
I'm inclined to agree. No mana floating, no more spells. Ross will have to draw. Glistener Elf's the draw. That's not particularly helpful.
I mean, this is 24 against 3 blockers.
Yeah.
There's no draw here.
Here comes
Block,
the Dryad Art.
block. Block with 1 or block with 24?
I would block with 24, I think. Because I don't want to lose to Berserk, right? Berserk grants trample.
Yes, Berserk grants trample. Because even if Tom's hands just pump spells, you win with the leftovers.
Yes.
Just if you can get the Arbor off the table, you still have them covered by quite a bit.
I would be blocking with all 24.
All 24 in front.
Very smart.
Well, I guess the concern with blocking with all... The only way that he can really punish you for blocking with all 24 is Berserk, and then you might need to block with all 24 to prevent from dying.
I mean, it's a 3-power creature. We know Tom has double Invigorate, so that's going to bring it up to 11. You lose 11 of your tokens, but okay. You just use your entire hand.
Yeah. I guess the flip side of it is, imagine you block with everything, and Tom's hand is something like Become Immense and Invigorate. You lose a lot and don't have lethal on the way back. So I don't know if it's quite... there might be a number greater than 1 and less than 24 that plays around everything that Ross could have a little bit better. If you don't want to sit there all day and try to figure out every permutation, block with 24 is probably close to correct.
I would say, what's the worst that could happen if I block with all 24? And that's exactly what Kerrigan's going to do.
The issue is that Ross still has a clock in play. He's still got 2 copies of Noble Hierarch.
Absolutely.
If you lose too much, then, you know, I still think block with all 24 is if it's wrong, it's not by much.
Yep.
And Ross having to alternate casting cost and Invigorate gives you a little life to play with, which is something.
This isn't. No, this is a weird game because this isn't over. Like, Tom has the ability to maybe, you know, backdoor into something perfect here. Because AJ has 6, 12, he has 13 goblins. It's not lethal. And now the Glistener Elf on the attack is a 3/3 because of Exalted.
Yep.
So he has a weird way to work himself into something that's perfect here. Kerrigan's going to keep here with the Ponder.
And this is the tough spot. If you attack with everything, you can die on the way back.
Yep.
If you attack with some percentage, but not all of your creatures, you may take too long to kill Tom. Or you might just lose so many creatures blocking every single turn that the game really slows down to a point where Ross has all sorts of turns to draw out of it.
So now he's got to figure out exactly what creatures he wants to attack with, how many, to make sure the game is over in 2 turns, because he can't kill them all in 1.
Yeah. The thing here is it's got to be 2 pump spells. There's no single pump spell that Ross can have that gets him a +7, which is what he needs to kill with his copy of Glistener Elf. Now, the other side of that is if he has Become Immense in hand, Ross's Noble Hierarch is lethal because it's a 2-point it's a 2-point attacker +6 with Kerrigan at 8.
That's true. That's true. All right, so here come 12 goblins.
Yep.
Going to leave 1 back on defense.
There's no way for Kerrigan to win the game if Ross's hand is perfect.
Yes.
If it's something like Become Immense Berserk, there's nothing that Kerrigan can do. This sets him up to beat most hands the next turn.
There's a Xantid Swarm. That's another blocker.
Sure, it's just another blocker in play.
Tom will draw a copy of Sylvan Library, and that's going to do it. AJ Kerrigan's going to win this match here over Tom Ross. 2-0. Storm is going to beat Infect, in which Kerrigan had a turn 2 kill game number 1, able to overcome 2 Leyline of Sanctities in game 2.